Glancing around the venue, Diara saw no sign of Sonoria. She had hoped to run into the strange woman, wanting to ask her for advice regarding her earlier words about superficiality and authenticity. However, the woman seemed to have disappeared, and Diara felt a sneaking suspicion that her brother had decided to punish Sonoria for her display on the stage. Still, Diara roamed the banquet hall in search of the mysterious woman. Her bright green eyes swept the room before landing on a handsome man who appeared rather irritated with a group of Diara's friends. She knew immediately. Those women were talking down to the man, likely in a condescending and judgmental manner. The man was tall, lithe muscles woven throughout his form, with bright blue eyes that stole Diara's breath. The sight of the man made her heart flutter in a way that wasn't familiar to her, and something about his stoic aura drew her closer without realizing, until one of her friends, a blonde with artificial curls, called out to her. "Diara!" The woman called out in a familiar nasal tone, her voice dripping with arrogance. "This is Vincenzo Moretti. Apparently, he built his organization from the ground up," added a brunette in an almost mocking tone. "And he's not even top 10 in the business world," snickered a ginger-haired woman. "Isn't that sad?" "He says it's because he refuses to take part in certain acts of corruption." The blonde rolled her eyes in a condescending manner. "I don't think it matters. If you're rich enough, you can get away with anything." "I agree," nodded the brunette. The room seemed to close in as Diara glanced between the man and the three women. Once upon a time, she would have been just like these women, talking down to anyone who wasn't at the top. As she listened with an unreadable expression, Sonoria's earlier words echoed in her mind. Power, wealth, and status are fleeting. They change in the blink of an eye. So be yourself instead. No doubt these women would turn on her if she didn't agree with them, a thought that made Diara's chest tighten with nervousness. Then another thought occurred to her. If these women could turn on her, then they weren't really her friends. Her expression hardened, resolve strengthening as her chin tilted defiantly. "If it doesn't matter, then why are you so worried about it?" Diara asked the women in a condescending tone. "I think you should be minding your own business instead of talking down to others as if you're any better. Could you run a business like he does? Because from my perspective, you all leech from the richest man in the room instead of working for it yourselves. You make fun of him, but we all know that you three wouldn't know the first thing about running an organization. It takes a certain amount of strength, perseverance, and intellect to build something from the ground up without buying your way into the top. That's something you could only dream of doing, so why don't you just walk away and bother somebody who cares?" The women stared at Diara in shock, flabbergasted by the sudden change in the Dragon Princess. "Diara, what's gotten into you?" the ginger asked, perplexed. "Yeah," the brunette agreed, equally confused. "I thought we were friends." "True friends wouldn't turn on each other at the first sign of weakness, and I am tired of pretending otherwise." Diara shot back coldly, folding her arms. Her heart was racing, but she refused to let it show outwardly. "Whatever," the blonde hissed in irritation. "I thought you were cooler than this." "We aren't teenagers," Diara replied, her expression unimpressed as she held her ground. "Go on. Go bother whatever rich predator will take you. Leave the real ones alone. Mr. Moretti doesn't need your approval, and frankly, neither do I." The women huffed, a couple of them shooting Diara curious glances as they walked away. Diara had been about to ask if Vincenzo was all right when she noticed his breathtaking blue eyes studying her thoughtfully. "That was interesting," the man commented, raising an eyebrow with an unreadable expression. "Aren't you a bit of a hypocrite, turning against them like that, Princess Diara?" Diara felt a wave of butterflies through her stomach. He knew who she was. Perhaps some sacrifices must be made in the name of growth, Diara said, attempting to keep the unfamiliar shyness from her voice. And please, there's no need for formality. Just Diara is fine. Then call me Vince, the man replied, his Italian accent making Diara feel like a schoolgirl with a crush. It is interesting to see the Dragon Princess standing up for us underdogs for a change. That made Diara wince, a pang of guilt shooting through her. He was right, of course. Diara had once been just as snooty and condescending as those women had been. Well, things change, Diara said awkwardly, a hand rubbing the back of her neck in a moment of insecurity that felt incredibly foreign for the Dragon Princess. Someone wise once told me that superficial things are fleeting and we shouldn't place all of our value in such things. A wise person indeed, Vince mused, his strikingly blue eyes roaming over Diara almost thoughtfully. Where is this person? I believe I'd like to meet the one capable of bringing about such change. Diara felt a pang of alarm run through her chest. She'd almost forgotten. She had been looking for Sonoria. I'm not sure, Diara said, a note of uncertainty in her tone. Danciel didn't seem too happy with her performance earlier. He might have made her leave the banquet early. Vince's dark eyebrow rose in intrigue. You're referring to the woman who rebelled on stage? He asked with a note of disbelief. The Dragon King's future bride, who called out the entirety of the hidden world in the form of a song. That's the one, Diara chuckled nervously. Well, if you see her, the man said, glancing over Diara as if reassessing her, tell her she has Tartarian support from me and mine. As Vince moved to walk away, Diara stopped him, calling out. Wait, she said, taking a step after him. How can we keep in touch? She'll want to know, I'm sure. A knowing smirk tugged at the man's lips as he reached into the jacket of his dark suit. Here's my contact information. Text me, Diara. Taking the business card, Diara felt a flutter in her chest at hearing her name from the man's lips in such an intimate sound. I will, Vince, she replied, internally cursing how breathless that sounded.